Today we will see Class 10 History, Chapter 2 Nationalism in India. As you have seen, the modern nationalism in Europe came to be associated with the formation of nation state. It also meant a change in people's understanding of who they were and what defined their identity and sense of belonging. New symbols and icons, new songs and ideas forged new links and redefined the boundaries of communities. In most countries, the making of this new national identity was a long process. How did these consequences emerge in India? In India, and as in many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is intimately connected to the anti-colonial movement. People began discovering their unity in the process of the struggle with the colonialism. The sense of being opposed under colonialism provided a shared bond that tied many different groups together. But each class and group felt the efforts of colonialism differently. Their experiences were varied and their notions of freedom were not always the same. The Congress under Mahatma Gandhi tried to forge these groups together within one movement, but the unity did not emerge without conflict. In an earlier textbook, you have read about the growth of nationalism in India up to the first decade of the 20th century. In this chapter, we will pick up the story from the 1920s and study the non-cooperation and the civil disobedience movements. We will explore how the Congress sought to develop the national movement, how different social groups participate in the movement, and how the nationalism captured the imagination of people. Here in figure 1, 6 April 1990, mass procession on the streets became a common feature during the national movement. One, the First World War, Caliphate and non-cooperation. In the years after 1990, we see the national movement spreading to new areas, incorporating new social groups and developing the new moods of struggle. How do we understand these developments? What implications do they have? First of all, the war created a new economic and political situation. It led to a huge increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by war loans and increasing taxes. Custom duties were raised and income tax introduced. Through the war years, prices increased, doubling between 1913 and 1918, leading to extremely hardship for the common people. Villages were called upon to supply soldiers, and the forced recruitment in rural areas caused widespread anger. When in 1918 to 19 and 1920 to 21, crops failed in many parts of India, resulting in acute shortage of food. This was accompanied by an influenza epidemic. According to the census of 1921, 12 to 13 million people perished as a result of famines and epidemic. New words, forced recruitment, a process by which the colonial state forced people to join the army. People hoped that their hardships would end after the war was over, but that did not happen. At this stage, a new leader appeared and suggested a new mode of struggle. 1.1 The idea of Satyagraha. Mahatma Gandhi returned to India in January 1915. As you know, he had come from South Africa, where he had successfully fought the racist regime with the novel method of mass agitation, which he called Satyagraha. The idea of Satyagraha emphasized the power of truth and the need to search for truth. It suggested that if the cause was true, if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the opposer. Without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, a Satyagrahi could win the battle through the non-violence. This could be done by appealing to the conscience of the opposer. People, including the opposers, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept the truth through the use of non-violence. By this struggle, truth was bound in to ultimately trump. Mahatma Gandhi believed that this is dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. After arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi successfully organized Satyagraha movements in various places. In 1917, he traveled to Champaran in Bihar to inspire the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Then in 1917, he organized a Satyagraha to support the peasants of Kelida district of Gujarat. Affected by crop failure and a plague epidemic, the peasants of Kheda could not pay the revenue and were demanding that revenue collections be relaxed. In 1918, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize a Satyagraha movement amongst cotton mill workers. Here in figure 2, the Indian workers in South Africa marched through the whole crust. 6 November 1913, Mahatma Gandhi was leading the workers from Newcastle to Transvaal. When the marches were stopped and Mahatma Gandhi arrested, thousands of more workers joined the Satyagraha against racist laws that deemed rights to non-whites. Source A. Mahatma Gandhi and Satyagraha. It is said of passive resistance that it is the weapon of the weak, but the power which is subject of this article can be used only by the strong. This power is not passive resistance. Indeed, it calls for the intense activity. The movement in South Africa was not passive but active. Satyagraha is not physical force. Satyagrahi does not inflict pain on the adversary. He does not seek his destruction. In the use of Satyagraha, there is no ill will whatever. Satyagraha is for pure soul force. Satyagraha is pure soul force. Truth is the very substance of the soul. That is why this force is called Satyagraha. The soul is informed with the knowledge, and it burns the flame of love. In it burns the flame of love. Non-violence is the supreme dharma. It is certain that India cannot rival the Britain or Europe in force of arms. The British worship the war god, and they can all of them become, as they are becoming, bearers of arms. Bearers of arms. The hundreds of millions in India can never carry arms. They have made the religion of nonviolence their own. Activity. Read the text carefully. What did Mahatma Gandhi mean when he said Satyagraha is active resistance? 1.2 The Rowlatt Act. Emboldened with this success, Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha against the proposed Rowlatt Act (1990). This act has been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. It gave the government enormous powers to repress the political activities and allowed detention of the political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience against such unjust laws, which would start with the Hartal on 6 April. Rallies were organized in various cities. Workers went on strike in railway workshops and shops closed down. Alarmed by the popular upsurge and the scared that lines of communication such as railways and telegraph would be disturbed, the British administration decided to clamp down the nationalists. Local leaders were picked up from Amritsar, and Mahatma Gandhi was banned from entering Delhi. On 10th April, the police in Amritsar fired upon a peaceful procession, provoking widespread attacks on banks, post office and railway stations. Martial law was imposed and General Tyre took command. On 13th April, the infamous Jallianwala Bagh incident took place. On that day, a large crowd gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh. Some came to protest against the government's new repressive measures. Others had come to attend the annual Baishakti fair. Being from outside the city, many villages were unaware of the martial law that had been imposed. Tyre entered the area, blocked the exit points and opened the fire on the crowd, killing hundreds. This object, as he declared later, was to produce a moral effort, to create in the minds of satyagrahis a feeling of terror and awe. As the news of Jallianwala spread, the crowds took to the streets in many North Indian towns. There were strikes, clashes with the police and attacks on government buildings. The government responded with the brutal repressions, seeking to humiliate and terrorize people. Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on the streets and so slam (salute to all the Sahibs). People were flogged and the villages around Gujranwala in Punjab, now in Pakistan, were bombed. Seeing violence spread, Mahatma Gandhi called off the movement. While the Rowlatt Satyagraha had been a widespread movement, it was still limited mostly to the cities and towns. Mahatma Gandhi now felt the need to launch a more broad-based movement in India. but he has certain that no such movement could be organized without the bringing the Hindus and Muslims closer together. One way of doing this, he felt, was to take up the Caliphate issue. The First World War had ended with the defeat of Ottoman Turkey, and there were the rumors that Arras peace treaty was going to be imposed on the Ottoman Emperor, the spiritual head of the Islamic world, in bracket the Khalifa. To defend the Calipha's temporal powers, a Caliphate committee was formed in Bombay in March 1919. A young generation of Muslim leaders like the brothers of Muhammad Ali and Saudat Ali began discussing with Mahatma Gandhi about the possibilities of the united mass action on the issue. Gandhiji saw this as an opportunity to bring the Muslims under the umbrella of unified national movement. At the Calcutta sessions of the Congress in September 1920, he convenienced other leaders of the need to start a non-cooperation movement in support of Caliphate as well as for Swaraj. Here in picture, figure 3, General Tyer's crawling orders being administered by British soldiers, Amritsar, Punjab, 1919. Thank you. Sharing is caring. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more knowledge.